folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Good evening, folks. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Urshan, and welcome to Volume 4 of my old classic films collection. And here we are focusing specifically on 70s horror, which is a huge bulk of my collection, to be honest with you, because the 1970s was such an incredible time for horror. Maybe the best decade ever for horror. There's so many classics that were released in the 70s. And we're going to start with The Legend of Lizzie Borden, starring Elizabeth Montgomery from Bewitched fame, taking on the role of alleged serial killer Lizzie Borden. That's right, because she was never actually proved guilty, was she? But we'll never know. Certainly all evidence was pointing at her, but very interesting film, and I think Elizabeth Montgomery does a fantastic role. This was something very different from her. This is nothing like the character of Samantha, is it? A very serious, dramatic role. And she's great in this. And she's actually a descendant of Lizzie Borden, believe it or not. It's probably why they picked her to do it. And of course we have the great Stephen King adaptation, Carrie, directed by the great Brian De Palma, starring Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie in this absolute classic from the 70s. John Travolta as well. I always forget that he's in it. But man, such a brilliant film and one of the best Stephen King adaptations. And we got a classic from the late great Wes Craven, that is The Hills Have Eyes. Absolutely love this film. I was a late bloomer to this one. I didn't see it till a few years ago. But man, it's an absolute classic. I love it. Great example of backwoods horror, you know, people taking the wrong turn where they don't belong and they pay dearly. Starring Dee Wallace, of course. I actually met Dee Wallace and got her autograph on my Hills of Eyes poster, which actually came with this Arrow video release of Hills Have Eyes, which is just fantastic. Yeah, I love this film. We got Fascination from Gene Rollin, an absolute classic from Gene Rollin, and some might consider it a vampire film because he's known for his lesbian vampire films, and there's definitely a lot of that in here, but it's more of like a blood cult than actual vampires. But really interesting movie. Lots of things everything that Gene Rollin is known for, loaded with gratuitous nudity and blood and violence and gore, and it's classic. And that's probably my favorite film by Gene Rollin. It's probably his most artistic, I would say. It's not just sleazy, it's actually very stylish. Then we have The Exorcist, of course, one of the greatest horror films of all time. And some people I've heard say that this film is underrated, which I'll never understand because I think it's absolutely brilliant. I understand that it is a slow burn horror film, but once, you know, they take a while to establish the story and establish the characters, but, I mean, it really, really pays off when you got this brilliant makeup effects and a brilliant performance by the young Linda Blair, and the whole cast is amazing. Ellen Burstyn, Max von Sydow, Jason Miller. Incredibly scary, incredibly creepy. I mean, I love the way they do Regan's voice when she's got like all these different voices going on. It's so creepy, you know. She speaks all these different languages, and it's crazy, man. And of course you got the Holy Catholic Church taking on a young girl possessed by the devil. Absolute classic from 1979. That's right, 79 is the cutoff point, and that is Phantasm. One of the most original horror films of all time. You got Angus Scrimm as the tall man, Reggie Bannister as Reggie, of course, and you got the young boy, played by Michael Baldwin. Kat Lester as the lady in lavender. Such a original film, blending elements of sci-fi with the horror, and man, it's crazy. You got those spheres with the blades on them flying through the mausoleum, and it's such an iconic scene, you know. You think of Phantasm, you always think of the mausoleum and the spheres flying through the halls, you know. It's so great. Don Coscarelli's masterpiece. And then you got, of course, Tobe Hooper's masterpiece, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. One of the greatest horror films of all time, in my opinion. Such a brilliant example of absolute madness. It feels so raw and realistic and so brutal, even though you barely see any actual blood in the film. It's just crazy. The atmosphere it creates is so brutal and realistic that you think it's like gotta be the bloodiest thing you've ever seen, but it's not. Absolute classic, The Omen, an excellent example of religious horror, and I think the religious horror elements are done so well, and they really did their research and their homework when it comes to this movie about the Antichrist, the child born, the son of the devil, who was adopted by Gregory Peck's character in the film. And this is some of the best acting I've ever seen in a horror film as well. I mean, it's just a fantastic cast. Brilliant film, and it's so scary, and it's got some very creative deaths as well. And not too many people talk about the sequel, Damien Omen 2, which I think is just an excellent sequel. And this was in 1978, when you see Damien is now a teenager, and he's just learning about his powers and what his purpose is and why he was chosen for this, and you know, and initially he doesn't want to be part of it. He's kind of reluctant, but then, you know, eventually he takes to it, and he he fully embraces his power and his purpose on this earth to be the ultimate evil, the Antichrist. This film needs no introduction, and that is Jaws. I mean, the greatest shark movie of all time. I don't think anything will ever come as close. There's never been a better shark movie than Jaws, and by the great Steven Spielberg and his masterpiece, the first true summer blockbuster. And it's just terrifying to this day that this film had such an impact on people that they wanted to stay away from the beach, stay out of the water in case there's a shark out there, you know. A deadly, gigantic shark. And of course we all know about the happy accident of the fact that the mechanical shark that they made for the film didn't really work right, and they had to use it very sparingly, but of course that worked out so well, because sometimes less is more, you know. And of course they use actual shark footage in certain scenes too, which is just terrifying, like that scene when the guy's in the cage and the underwater and the sharks, you know, coming right at him, bashing through the cage. It's so scary. And also the sequel, Jaws 2, is very underrated, I think. It's such a good sequel, I think. And this was in 1978. And you did have Roy Scheider returning to the role as Chief Brody as well. I think it's a solid sequel, although this film feels a little bit more like a slasher movie in a way, like the way the shark takes out people one by one. But I still enjoy it. It's definitely, and it's got the best tagline ever for a horror film. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. I love that. And you got Salem's Lot, the TV miniseries. directed by Tobe Hooper, and this is, of course, the Stephen King adaptation. I still think this is the scariest television movie of all time, because there's still some scenes in here that really grab you, that are really scary and really intense. I love Tobe Hooper's direction on this film, and I love the look of the vampire, played by Mr. Barlow, Kurt Barlow, very reminiscent of the Nosferatu film from 1922 by F.W. Marnell. It's definitely a tribute to that, you can tell. But such a great film, starring David Soul as the vampire killer. Absolute classic of folk horror, and that is The Blood on Satan's Claw. I absolutely love this film, starring Linda Hayden. And this is such a great film about a satanic cult. Really interesting and really, really well written, and it just feels so authentic. I mean, some of the language they use in this, some of the spells and incantations that they use, and it's like, ooh, man, you could really conjure up some stuff with that, And we got Jess Franco with Exorcism. It's his Exorcist knockoff, basically. It's a lot of fun, though. It's typical Jess Franco. Cross between art house and sleaze. He always walks that fine line, and usually it's more towards the sleazy end of things. Especially with this one, I would say is a little more on the sleazy side. Great film, extremely atmospheric, extremely sexy vampire film, Daughters of Darkness, which is the woman in the film, Delphine Seyrig, actually plays the Countess Elizabeth Bathory, as if she was an actual vampire, And we're not quite sure whether she's the real Elizabeth Bathory in the film, but they never really say. It's kind of up in the air. It leaves it up to the imagination, but she certainly calls herself that, and it's very much a classic, lesbian vampire film. It's a very atmospheric, very gothic vampire film. This great little Giallo collection here from the 1970s. You got The Case of the Bloody Iris, Your Vice is a Locked Room, and Only I Have the Key. Death Laid an Egg, and The Dark is Death's Friend. You got the Edwige French collection. Deadly Fiends. Some great classic Giallos in there. Speaking of ghosts, we got the Ghost Galleon, which is part of the Tombs of the Blind Dead series. This is the Blind Dead on an old pirate ship kind of thing. And it's so great. It's got that classic atmosphere that we see in the Tombs of the Blind Dead series. And then we had the first sequel, which is Return of the Evil Dead. Love that name. It's also known as Return of the Blind Dead, but I prefer that title just because it's confusing. What? Evil Dead? Is this one of the Evil Dead movies? No, it's Tombs of the Blind Dead franchise. That's a fantastic sequel that really ups everything. Ups the gratuitous nudity, ups the violence, ups the gore, and still maintains that incredible gothic atmosphere. And then we had Night of the Seagulls, which is the final film in the franchise. And it really went kind of back to the formula of the original film. Absolutely love the original film, and this is one of my favorite physical media purchases. And that's The Tombs of the Blind Dead. This is a steelbook release from Synapse. I absolutely love this. Beautiful steelbook. Look at that. This has the soundtrack to the film and everything. I love the picture discs. Beautiful Beautiful release. One of my absolute favorites. This is such a fantastic film. Spanish horror film. Tombs of the Blind Dead. Love the artwork too. Then we have the Italian horror masterpiece from Dario Argento, that is Suspiria. Absolute classic. I mean, is there a more atmospheric horror film? I mean, it's kind of almost like a supernatural giallo. But man, I love that cover too from Synapse. Synapse has some great releases. This is definitely one of them. Plus, they have some 4K ones, too, that are more intense than this one. But, yeah. This, to me, is Dario Argento's masterpiece. There are a couple movies I like technically more than this one, but I think this is the best made Dario Argento film. And we got the classic from 1979 from Lucio Fulci, Zombie. Or Zombie 2, or Zombie Flesh Eaters. There's so many different names to this film, but, you know, in America it was released as just Zombie, which I actually prefer. I like, just leave it at that, Zombie. Because Zombie 2, when they called it in Italy, it was supposed to be like a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, which is known as Zombie in Italy, so... I just prefer it being on its own, in its own thing, because this film does stand on its own. It's not a sequel to Dawn of the Dead or anything. It's just an awesome zombie film, and with some of the nastiest, goriest effects in horror. Some of the most realistic looking zombies. I mean, the scenes of the zombies rising from the graves and coming out of the dirt. Worm infested and decayed and nasty. It's brutal. I love it. It's sick, man. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage is such a great... this is actually Dario Argento's first giallo film, and one of his best. I think it's a great murder mystery. And you got all the classic elements of the giallo in here. Highly influenced by Mario Bava, I must say. But I love the murder mystery in this one. It's so good. And there are some nasty murders in this one. Not as much as some of his others, but I think the mystery element in this one is one of my favorites. But I think technically Dario Argento's best giallo film is Deep Red from 1975. I mean, the atmosphere in this movie is incredible. And the murders are just brutal, especially this woman, that scene there when the hatchet comes down her shoulder and smashing through the window, and we always get someone getting killed by getting smashed through a window in like every Dario Argento movie, don't we? It's just a staple of Argento. It's got to be glass breaking and someone getting smashed with the glass in their face, you know. It's a wild one. Very, very atmospheric and brutal, brutal murders. There's a high emphasis on the kills, that's for sure. Good evening, folks, and we got some brand new merchandise for you over at www.thehorrorkona.com, and that's CONA.com. Representing the Horror Corner. Great new design. We got the Morbid Hour live stream there, you got the Horror Hangout live stream there, and you got my nemesis, the Dark Fate. So grab your t-shirt over at www.thehorrorkona.com. And we also got this beautiful new mug. Look at that. Very, very cool. Thought that came out really nice. So grab your merchandise today over at www.thehorrorkona.com.